You are a defector, I understand.
Yes, my king.
I am not your king.
But I wish you to be.
But you are a traitor by definition, are you not? What would I want with a traitor in my midst?
I can tell you of a village that lies unprotected, where you can gather young women.
I have plenty of women.
Slaves and weaponry.
And plenty of weapons. What I want is the Emperor's bow. Do you have any children?
Not yet.
A man's seed can be his most brutal weapon. For generations, your people will stare into the eyes of their sons, and they will see my likeness. I will be remembered in every glance, every smile, every tear that is shed for eternity. But before your baptism, understand that you are not drawn here to my flame on instinct. But you ran here because you are a coward. And the world does not need any more cowards. So I shall do this world a great favor. Mark you as one of us. And rid you of your ability to populate the earth. Traitor, although you will not hear them, your forefathers weep from their graves.
Greetings and welcome to Caribbean Vanguard. So today I want to take some time to address a situation that happened in Trinidad and Tobago, where some young men were not allowed to walk or graduate with their peers due to their hair. Some had braids and some had longer locks or longer hair. And due to that, they were told to sit in a corner somewhere away from the other students where their parents were not allowed to see them. And then after the graduation, they were handed their certificates. There are a lot of mixed feelings about the situation. There are many articles about it. So today I'm going to share a video with you. I'm going to share some articles with you and some responses. And then at the end of all of that, I will give you my opinion based on facts, opinions that are backed up with facts. Before I get into it though, I want to take some time and shout out Nika. Hey Nika, appreciate all you do. Keep up the good work. You're awesome. Let's get into the story.
I want us to understand, this is not just about a hairstyle, you know. It's deeper than a hairstyle. It's about our burgeoning identity as a nation. We are 61 years young, but we are maturing as a society. We are getting older. We are questioning the norms that we hold as a society, and that is the maturing process. We are doing what we're supposed to do. We are questioning the rules, and we are looking at our nation and our ability to make our rules for ourselves. And nothing is wrong with that. And that's why this conversation is much deeper than just a hairstyle. It forces us to reflect on the fact that in many areas, the time has come for reform. The time has come for reform. So a date has been set next week for a discussion with the stakeholders, and this is due because I understand, as a member of the PNM who built this country, and we are a living, breathing, dynamic society, and yes, Trinidad is a real place. Young as we may be, we are maturing, and with maturity comes the need for reform.
A 17-year-old boy and his mom were left embarrassed after a decision by the administrative department of the Trinity College Moka to ban several students from graduating with most of their peers. The teenagers were blocked because of their hairstyle, which were dubbed inappropriate. As a consequence, they received their certificate afterward. It was embarrassing. It ain't have nothing else to it, Price said during an interview with Guardian Media yesterday. According to Trinity College student rules and guidelines, male students are required to wear their hair short, neat, and appropriate. Marks in their hair and eyebrow are not allowed. However, Bryce's hair did not appear to breach these rules as he fell within the guidelines. Despite this, he was lumped with the classmates who opted for cornrows and afros, which caught him by surprise. On the last day of school, they put us in a meeting to inform us about what would be going on after graduation. They told us that our hair has to be neat. They didn't say anything about cut down or anything like that. They say it have to be neat, he said. Apart from feeling shamed by his educational institution, he was also disappointed that he was separated from the rest of his peers. The way that they segregate we, they put us on a bench far in the corner where our parents couldn't even see us. They, parents that is, had to walk all the way in front of the stage to see us. It was really a bad experience for a very special day, he said. This also affected his mother, who was eager to see him cross the stage and receive praise for his work over the last 5 years. She waited to capture the moment and was disappointed. The mother was there with the camera in her hand, waiting to see her child walk up and collect his certificate, and she didn't get to experience that. Neither did I get to experience that at the time, he said sadly. Upset by the ordeal she and her son experienced, silent public relations officer of the Parent Teachers Association stepped down immediately. She intended to send a message to the board that this was not acceptable. When I resigned via WhatsApp group, I said, guys, this is it for me. Because I cannot be part of a discriminatory actions, ignorance for the most part, and bias, she said. She also expressed her dissatisfaction with how the school opted to address the matter, though she said she did not support the outbursts by some parents. The Anglican dean decides to come up and reprimand the parents for having an opinion or being disenchanted with what was going on. Maybe the outburst is not what should have happened because it really kind of put a damper on everything. But at the same point in time, I could understand. The Anglican dean's comments were preceded by the principal coming up to say, this is what happens when you don't obey the rules. This is what we're trying to understand. Why wait until today to do that when there have been conversations before asking why? Why can't we just do things differently? Why can't the boys grow their hair? When she didn't hear her son's name, Griffith opted to leave, but she was stopped. Her son and others were given their certificates after the ceremony. Up to late yesterday, she was unaware of why Bryce's name was removed. According to the minister, conversation on the issue will take place soon. Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gadsby responded to the reports in Facebook posts, describing it as regrettable and unfortunate. She said while the rules are being debated, they must be followed. Nonetheless, she questioned whether the ceremony was a suitable forum to enforce the guidelines. The question of suitability of graduation ceremony as a forum to enforce the rules of a school from which students were actively graduating is a valid one, she said. Regardless of one's emotional and visceral response to this issue, it is a fact that societal order depends on rule keeping. And that is a critical facet of education schools are meant to impart, she added. She assured that conversations will take place soon to address this ahead of the upcoming school term. Yet another critical conversation arises out of these circumstances, which speaks to the standardization of the rules and removal of subjectivity, which surrounds school hairstyles, especially for male students. The time for this conversation in Trinidad and Tobago has come, and decisions will be taken for implementation in the upcoming academic year, based on the Ministry of Education's discussions with our valued stakeholders, she said. Dear Trinity College Moka, why would you do that to those kids? Why would you uphold the rules and regulations that continue to separate us? Why would you segregate those boys from fellow graduating classmates of 2023 because of their hair? These children were ushered and rushed in through the side entrance like slaves because of their hair. These children were not allowed to walk through the front entrance along with their fellow classmates or fellow graduates because of their hair. These students' names were not called to receive their certificates because of their hair. These students were shunned to the side of the church behind a wall because of their hair. Those students who were called to receive their certificates by accident, as the teacher probably forgot to blacklist them, were told to go back and sit down because you're not going up there because of their hair. These students were being told by their admin for over a year that they need to cut off their hair. These students who have been part of their student council struggling against their administration for the right to literally be themselves and to keep their hair. These students have abided by your archaic rules, have groomed and combined their hair to satisfy your colonial and racist needs, just to be told that it wasn't enough to gain access to a certificate they worked so hard for. These children, whose parents, when speaking up about this blatant discrimination and disrespect, were told to shh. These children, who sat there so confused and hurt, were told to wait. You'll get it after the ceremony. These children who can't understand why they have to cut their hair. These children who excelled in both their academic studies and extracurricular endeavors were told no because of their hair. Karen Stephen Branch. I hope all of the people who are writing and making comments, both for and against, are willing to support the school in the fundraising activities. We, Moka, not modifying our rules and regulations for the status quo. Real simple. If you do not like the rules, then send your boys somewhere else. Evelyn Hector Joseph responded to Karen saying, so when did this started to grow? Was it suddenly? Are you trying to prove a point? And Karen responded with, thank you in advance for your generous patronage at our fundraising event. Bless you. Vinsu responded to Karen as well, saying, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Karen Clark responded to Avalon Hector and asked, Avalon Hector Joseph, every action has an equal or opposite reaction. They were warned over a year ago, according to the lady speaker. Why ignore this rule and still continue to grow your hair? Why should they bend the rules to allow these boys to continue to believe they can do what they want and be accepted? This behavior and mindset is plaguing this country right now. It's a school which is an institution for learning, not style. Too much shit being allowed with these new generation. I got suspended for having 1.5 white tick on my black socks under my long pants. And now looking back, I'm glad for it. Carrie Babb said, where is the accountability in this? Where is the Minister of Education? Where is the Prime Minister on this? If they endorse this, they need to be held accountable. Rashad Beard said, we must remember it's fully grown adults with full access to all information of the interwebs in their pockets that are upholding this BS plantation rules. You like to follow North America so much? Look up the Crown Act. Follow that now. David Filbert said, are you still playing stupid and doting the colonist culture in this country? Are you still playing stupid and dotish with the colonist culture in this country? Akim John Hamlet said, if this is true, then this is crazy. Kristen Foster Nabi said, I really hope this is not true. So sad to see this happening in Trinidad in this day and age. Renisha Alexander Haywood said, it hurts me to the core what was done to these boys. Their hair did not grow overnight. This is shameful on the school's behalf and also racist in our multi-ethnic society in this day and age. That is failure. David Samuel said, y'all ever notice how these decency and discipline and God-fearing Trinities all sound the same? I'm not even being fictitious. They tend to express the same opinions in mostly the exact same words too. It's like they have hive mind. But then again, These are people who neither read nor travel, or if they travel, it's to New York or Miami to eat a Burger King and shop in Walmart and stay in a hotel and stay holed up in a Trinity relative apartment 2 weeks at most before returning. Asa Jones said, David Samuel, yep, hive-minded they are. Krista Sarah Abella said, the colonizers have occupied people's mind for so long. They themselves portray the colonial mindset, all while being colored people. Master's way of life lives strong even after slavery days. Carol Atway Thomas said, talk too much. Who got up and actually did something about it? Diane Grant said, I want to fully agree with the Minister of Education. The matter is regrettable and unfortunate. During my studies in cosmetology in the 70s, we were asked to do a research paper on black hair care. The class was encouraged to purchase a book, Willie Morrow, entitled 400 Years Without a Comb. I still have a copy at hand. In his introduction, the author stated that his desire is to expose the black man's struggle for identity through his hair and society attitude towards it. I have pulled up my book today and started reading chapter 5, Accepted and Unaccepted Hair. In this chapter, he explored on the grooming tradition of black hair care that was taught and the physical and unique characteristics of the black hair, the term good hair and bad hair, hoping that the key stakeholders meet and address the matter in order to avoid any reoccurrence. David Samuel said, whatever your beliefs are, there is one undeniable trend across countries. The more religious they are, the worse off they tend to be, economically and socially. The only nation to buck that trend is Saudi Arabia, and the reason is just loads of oil money. Literally all countries of lower religiosity and hierarchical, moralistic thinking are doing better by most metrics. I dare any of these decency and discipline trinities to explain that. Disclaimer, this is not to say something is wrong with having personal religious belief. It's more about nations that want religious norms to govern how they run it. Ryan Rahim said, but Indian descent boys could have long hair, right? Unfair and distasteful. Norris Geig said, Trinity School is a denominational establishment that is run by the Anglican Archdiocese. It is government assisted, just like the other religious organizations in Trinidad and Tobago. They have rules by which they are governed. There is a conversation taking place on the radio as we speak, making this incident into a racial issue when it's not. I am sure when children passed for the school, they attend orientation together with their parents or guardians and will issue written guidance about the dress code and other rules. There is something fundamentally wrong with us as a people, and I mean all races. We tend to test the system to see how far we can go, which is called indiscipline. And we are an indisciplined society. Whether the school should have taken action before, as I am sure they were warned, is not the issue. The class perfect said so. I am appealing to our right-thinking citizens to not make this matter into something which it is not. Kevin Thomas said, rules are rules. This isn't new, and it's in all schools. They're lucky they even got to enter the compound. Miss Piggy Lee said, sue them now for all the money they are hoarding over all these years, thieving from parents. Natalie said, why do these children this? Or why do this to these children? Kevi Capildio shares a link about school discrimination. Marcello Meoza said, and hence the landscape that has been left from the colonist past. No matter how educated we become, the shackles remain embedded in our minds and subconsciousness. And so the Jim Crow continues, perpetuated by ourselves. There is a disconnect. My people, my people. Elijah McKinney said, rules are rules, and there are children Grow your hair however you want as an adult after school. Parents very slack to not understand this as well. Ronald Moore said, "This is ridiculous because rules. Why you all don't take it up to the Minister of Education, whose hairstyle is like Oscar the Grouch." Keziah Payne said, "It's 2023. In a country where a significant percent of the population is African descent, but these educational institutes still have colonialist hair discrimination policies, which was originally a segregation tactic. And the mentally slow in the comments are chanting, 'Rules are rules.' This is why sustained progress will not happen for us or generations to come." Sankofa Tuzin said, "I heard the principal at Karen Trinity. You can hardly be called an educator if you cannot understand the harassment of anybody for their natural physical features. Color of skin, hair, and hairstyle is a race shaming, profiling, stereotyping, victimizing, abusing, bullying. Number 2, such abuse is not a rule. Number 3, not confirming the authority abuse is a right. A protest well endorsed by proponents of liberationists, as found on the works of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, the black woman who protested the Miss University franchise in 1977 for not acknowledging the beauty of black African women, thus denying them the crown year after year. Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, Nina Simone, Butler, and black activist women activists, and so many more. Black power movements is what helped get black women and men to work at banks, media anchors, air attendants, etc. The very fact that the Anglican Church has female clerics, gender differences, etc., are all victories won through the protests of abuse, victimization, etc. These are power and control policies. For anyone to call that act of student as breaking rules, not confirming, etc., fails to be an educator, i.e., to draw out the intelligence in their students. Furthermore, why you could not enforce your hair shaming policy during the schooling years of your students? Your attempt to punish, victimize, and shame them on the day of their graduation is grossly appalling. The church never had my respect, and the school does not. I will refer to it and the Karen, never Trinity, which is a sacred term. I refer to your brave students whom you abuse through your lack of knowledge and intelligence where Black African history is concerned as Black African activists who fought your racist Black African here, shaming, victimizing, bullying evil policies. These students I now recommend for awards and celebration by the Emancipation Support Committee, the upcoming Emancipation Day celebration. Black hair shaming, victimizing, bullying must stop. It must be removed from all law books, banished with immediate effect. Boys, as a Black African, I am extremely proud of each of you for standing up to Karen's dotish racial abuse of Black African hair and hairstyle. You each are Black African heroes standing up, where many of us, including your Karen, so-called principal, and so-called educators and so-called ministers of education who allow this victimization to continue under their watch. Do we need a Kamlaya to abolish the racist policy like how they liberated the Shouter Baptist? You know she will do so for the political gains while Black-based government continue to colonial racist rules, laws which makes no sense but continuation of racism on the plantation. As Dr. Muhammad would always call on his people to do, think people. Florento Lesaldo said, that school needs to be incinerated long time ago. Janelle Cornwall said, unbelievable. With racial profiling these kids over their hair? Seriously? That's messed up in so many ways, shape, and form. Could not even graduate. How messed up can this school be? Always quick to pick on the Black people, especially the Black men. All they want to do is to graduate. That's all. Even graduation is a problem. needs a big change as soon as possible. Michelle Jacob. Madness in this day and age, unacceptable. Very far said. Here we go again. Trinidad and their unlimited amount of sucking on them Jack pills bulls. Some bullshit. As soon as America sneezes, they catch a cold. They're only following the biased racism they're seeing happening in certain educational institutions across America. Trinidad leaders, politicians, and civil servants have become a nation of followers with no leadership skills. Some of our citizens, unfortunately, seem to hold the view that natural hair type of students of African descent and their African ancestry/heritage and culture are not valid considerations in the crafting and implementation of school rules. It is refreshing that, like in 1970, the heroes of the day are very conscious and intelligent young men. On this occasion, from Trinity College, who stood up for what is right and just, in the face of discrimination and the utmost humiliation, disrespect, and obscene assault on their dignity, integrity, and character. Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. I am very pleased with the outcome thus far of the meeting between the Minister of Education and some stakeholders on the issue of a national school hair code. To be sure, there are certain things that needs tweaking, but much progress has been made. It is a work in progress. There also needs to be a consultation on such matters periodically between the stakeholders and organizations such as the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the matters that needs tweaking is the issue of wearing of wigs and dyeing of hair. I note that the school authorities have certain discretion on such matters, so there is not a blanket prohibition, but this is potentially a very sensitive matter that must be handled with great care and attention. For example, there may be some female students who are receiving treatment for cancer or affliction with some other diseases that would cause them to lose their hair. It would obviously be very insensitive if such students were prohibited from wearing wigs. Some female students with natural short hair are bullied. A wig may be helpful. There are some students who are sensitive about the natural color of their hair. I recall from my own school days where some students, particularly the boys, were bullied because their natural hair color was sugar brown. It is unfortunate that a very small minority of stakeholders appears to be not fully supportive of the outcome of the meeting. I am disappointed that some of our citizens are still so tone deaf on such issues in 2023. Worse, some of them are educators. In this regard, some of our citizens, unfortunately, seem to hold the view that the natural hair type of students of African descent and their African ancestry/heritage and culture are not valid considerations in the crafting and implementation of school rules. Accordingly, in my views, there seems to be an inherent unconscious bias by implications that Africa is a backward place, and such an association, even with regard to hairstyle and culture, will lead to a rapid deterioration of moral standards, values, law and order, and inevitable social decay. Given all that transpired in this country in 1970 and globally, with the struggle and eventual abolition of segregation in the USA and apartheid in South Africa and Zimbabwe, I really thought that we had passed the stage long ago. Clearly, I was mistaken. White supremacist colonial views are still very deeply embedded in the hearts and minds of some members of our intelligentsia. Marcus Garvey did warn us that our freedom is still in abeyance until we ourselves free our minds from centuries of brainwashing. It is refreshing that, like in 1970, the heroes of the day are very conscious and intelligent young men. On this occasion, from Trinity College, who stood up for what is right and just in the face of discrimination and utmost humiliation, disrespect and obscene assault on their dignity, integrity, and character. I have no doubt that Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi would have been very proud of the stance these young men took. We must, however, ensure that such a fiasco is never repeated. These young men need to be honored appropriately. I have no doubt that the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago will do so. Our nation awoke from its slumber when these young men opened our eyes. Incidentally, Billy Graham did advise us, courage is contagious. When brave men take a stand, the spines of others are often stiffened. All right, now for my thought on the entire situation. First and foremost, I want to give condolences to the children, to the boys, to the family, and kudos to Dr. Nyla for her bold and honest feedback or response in support of the youth. I definitely give kudos to her. Now, hopefully you were able to listen to the intro, because that intro that was taken from a movie coincides with everything that we experience today. Part of the intro talk about how a man's seed can be his most potent weapon. Sometimes I really feel that these movies are made to clown us. Sometimes I really feel that these movies are really made to clown us. You would see his identity in your children. You would hear it in their speech, in education, and everything. And since I touch on the matter of seed and education, we have to keep in mind that this school was initiated or started by this man. His name is Henry VIII, and that was back in 1547. So he still live on, and he live on in your children. And I thought it was awesome, at the same time questionable, when I hear Marcus Garvey, when Dr. Nyland said, Marcus Garvey himself said it. She quoted Marcus Garvey in saying that we are not totally free unless we free ourselves. We have to free our minds. So for us to free our mind, now as it pertains to education, I am 100% for education. But I am a firm believer, before we send our youths out to any type of university, they should have a strong sense of identity, and that is built from home and school. But because our school system was not set up by us and for us, they will not get that strong sense of identity and pride of self and culture and their ancestors in school. They will get some brief information about it. If they go to a university and their roots are not planted deeply, then someone is going to plant them deeply. And they may be more of a weapon against you than of any type of assistance, as we see. And that is why Dr. Nyland and other people are surprised of some of the positions when it comes to educators and sponsors. And that is a trick word right there as well, sponsors. You got to know who these sponsors are, because these sponsors have a lot of say-so in how the schools function. And people need to make sure they don't go back to sleep. I was kind of troubled when she said that Trinidad and Tobago has woken up by the action of these young men. No, you don't get woken up by this simple action, because we've been seeing these things throughout the generation. Someone mentioned situation back in the 70s. She said that she thought we were long past these things because of the apartheid that happened, because of the segregation that happened. So it shows me that even though she's very educated, she was still asleep. Because I know better than that. It doesn't surprise me. Because Marcus Garvey and the ancestors already warned us, but we keep neglecting what they say. And then whenever we get pushback, that is when we reach back to the ancestors. So the university, until we start building our own and try to become an independent group of people like we always try to, and stop trying so much to be a part of everyone else, stop trying so much to breed ourselves out, so that our kids can see that we are proud of who we are. This is how they show pride in their culture. They take schools and they create schools and they make statues and make sure that they put their ancestors out there. Where are ours? It seems to me that the schools and statues that we have up are the ones that they paid for, are the ones that they allowed us to put up. Where is our grave sites of the unknown? If they're out there, I should be hearing more about them. I'm not seeing them. There was a guy named Kyron Stephen Branch. He told the people that if you can't follow the rules, then get gone. See, that is when people don't respect you. He would not talk like that to the Europeans. He would not talk like that to the Chinese. And he's probably not going to talk like that to the Indians either. But people don't respect us because they live around us and they see that we don't truly respect ourselves. They see that when Carnival come around, we dress up in colors, we have a good time, but we are not deeply rooted in our culture and we are not connected to our ancestors. So until we fix that, until people see that they are dealing with some serious people, then we're going to continue to get disrespected. One lady said she was, I guess, addressing Trinidad and Tobago, and she said, we as a people basically need to fix ourselves. And she went on to emphasize saying that when I say people, quote, she said, when I say people, I mean all races or all ethnic group of people. She didn't have to say that. You know why? Because I listened to the ancestors. I knew that's what she meant. Because many times our people are shamed by considering us a people without involving everybody else. That is something I realized. Many of us are simply cowards, and that's what it is. Not saying she is, but that reminds me of comments that I hear from other places. The doctor said that there seemed to be an unconscious bias that Africa is backward. And I can see that. And you know where the unconscious bias is? It's not necessarily from other people, it's from within us. It's the self-hate that we got within ourselves. That is why everybody a bunch of people, not everyone, but more than enough, trying to get mixed babies and all type of stuff like that. And that's why I say we don't look at it as a failure, but it's a failure on all of us when our children is going through these type of stuff, because it tells them that we neglect our responsibility to build for them. We neglect our responsibility to create a school for them. And we feel that once we join ourselves to someone else, then we can take credit for that as well. But that is not how it works. And that is why I respect anyone who go and build for themselves. As a people, we got to build our own stuff. She mentioned Martin Luther King, and at one point she said that Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi would be proud of the boys. That is what confuses me again, because she would say some things that make me say, okay, she got it. But then she would say other things that make me see that she still don't get it. And by saying that Trinidad and Tobago has woken up, it proved to me that you still don't get it. Because the African people came to Trinidad and Tobago in the 1700s, and the Indians came, and the Indians got there 100 years later. The same thing that I'm hearing in Jamaica, where people are saying that we all have the same right to the land. I don't know how we give that up. How do we give that up? How do we give that up? After all your ancestors been through on that land, how could you turn around and give it to a people that came voluntarily as indentured servants? Nothing against them. I know some pretty cool Indian people. I have no kind of animosity towards them. But that is common sense, because I don't think that is something they would do. I don't think that is something that anyone on the planet would do, except for African people. We think that it's loving and kind, but to me it is very gullible. I don't want to say ignorant. It is gullible, and that is why we continue to end up in the situations we end up in. And I hear them over and over again, and I'm so tired of hearing them. From a position of weakness. That is why the guy said, if you don't like the school, you can go to another school. Never would you see the Jews relying on the ancestors of Nazis to educate their children. They are not relying on anybody else to educate their children. They are unified. They are tightly knitted, and ain't no one tell them anything about it. They don't even have to say anything. They automatically know that unity is strength, and ain't no one going to disrespect them like that. Because you see what happened when someone says something out of line to them that they believe is out of line. But we here, on the other hand, still believe that we can just keep our head down and be individuals. They use the Holocaust to hold them together. But who have the greatest Holocaust? And when I say greatest, I don't mean that in a good way. I mean it in a way of catastrophic. Who had the most catastrophic Holocaust that we can think of in modern time? Where an identity was erased. This is not just people getting killed, because when people get killed, if people are left behind who still know who they are and still have a strong sense of family, then they can pull back together easier. But you had your entire culture history erased. So you have a lot of grounds to cover. Not to undermine the Holocaust that the Japanese been through. That was crazy. Crazy. And I'm not even comparing them. It's just a different Holocaust. Not undermining the Holocausts of World War I and World War II, where people, and in these cases, people are fighting for simply out of ego and pride. In ours, it was not about that. It was simply about living a life, and then people come and capture you, because the natives in the Caribbean at the time was not built to do the type of work that they wanted them to do. We were built for it. So we are strong people. We are mighty people, but we have to realize that. A lion is worthless if he don't know that he's a lion. Lions work in groups. We are social, right? So we need to get each other back up. But that's all for now. Until next time, be blessed.